So I saw this video on X, and this man wants us to look at his face for a very specific reason.
My question I ask you is what purpose do ticks have? Look at my face and my neck. I can't eat red meat anymore. I can't have any animal byproducts in anything. And it's in everything. This is alpha-gal syndrome. This is fucked up, man. Ticks. I love to go hiking. This is crazy.
So this man is showing us one of the impacts of alpha-gal syndrome, something you get from being bitten by a tick called the Lone Star tick. Even getting close to red meat, you don't even have to devour it. Like one with a peanut allergy getting close to a peanut, they start to break out in hives. It can even get as bad as asphyxiation. Alpha-gal syndrome is nothing new. People have reported having it decades ago, but it was supposedly very rare. The Lone Star tick was only found in Texas, yet for whatever reason, very recently, and one could imagine as to why, this tick has been exploding in other states to the point that the cases of alpha-gal syndrome have been rising dramatically. There have been an explosion of cases mainly on the East Coast and the North, but then you have locations like Oklahoma that want to have an alpha-gal syndrome awareness month. During a time, as coincidence may have it, the farms, the farmlands, the cows have become a great inconvenience for people that have a lot of money that want to do things on these lands that these farms are currently occupying. Now, you'll have some people out there that'll say that this is just a scare tactic, they're fear mongering, they clearly don't want us to hunt for our food, they don't want us to go out into the woods, and that is always possible. But are we saying at the same token that they cannot genetically modify ticks, they cannot genetically modify mosquitoes, they won't release these things onto the public? Well, here's a World Economic Forum bioethicist, a doctor, Matthew Lau, back in February, saying just that at the World Economic Forum.
I'll give two examples. So one is that people eat too much meat, right? And if they were to cut down on their consumption on meat, then they would it would actually really help the planet. But people are not willing to give up meat. Yeah, some people will be willing to, but other people, they may be willing to, but they have a weakness of will. They say, wow, this steak is just too juicy. I can't do it. I'm one of those, by the way. So, but so here's the thought, right? So it turns out that we know a lot about, we have these intolerance to, for example, I have milk intolerance, and some people are intolerant to crayfish. So possibly we can use human engineering to make it the case that we're intolerant to certain kinds of meat, to certain kinds of bovine proteins. And there's actually analogs of this in life. There's this thing called the Lone Star tick, where if it bites you, you'll become allergic to meat. I can sort of describe the mechanism. So that's something that we can do through human engineering. We can kind of possibly address really big world problems through human engineering.
Now it's come out that people are reporting a surge in unusually aggressive hyaloma ticks, which captured in this video right here are even chasing people.
Смотрите, какой шустрый клещ, вот он за мной бежит. Смотрите, я сейчас в бок уйду, оп, опа, чисто цель наметил, не сдается. Оп, опа, бежит. Еще так быстро бежит, я даже не знал, что клещи так быстро бегают. Оп, вот я сейчас сюда, опа. Какой? Видит цель, не видит препятствия. Вот.
These look like some kind of bioweapon, something you would see out of Resident Evil. As early as February, I was seeing ticks inside my house, and I was like, what's going on here? This is when you normally do not see ticks. But using things that naturally have either lemongrass or peppermint really helps. I got this product called Mighty Mint that's been keeping them at bay. You might find something more natural out there, I don't know, but that's been helping me. But moving on, I do want to talk about this. So this cathedral over in Oakland, California has been making its rounds across social media again, mainly on X, due due to a projection it produces, which they say is supposed to be a projection of Jesus, but as you can see, this X account says it seems a bit off, because at night, this is what the quote-unquote projection of Jesus looks like, with many people making clear comparisons to the goat man, the Baphomet, even right down to the hooved feet. It's eerie how the glass is laid out to give the projection a more demonic, goat-like appearance. And like I said, even though it's making its rounds across social media now where people are giving their opinions, you can find news articles about this going all the way back to 2022, where it says Bay Area residents confused by satanic goat on local church. And according to the article, people are pretty much in agreement what they're seeing here. This individual, this owner of Econo Jam Records, said 100% the Baphomet. This other resident said they did not do a good job of making the halo round and not look like horns. And that's exactly what I said when it comes to the design of this glass. It gives the halo a more horn-like appearance. Some people that have gone there said that pictures of it don't do it any justice, that it's bigger, grander, and more satanic looking than they expected. But perhaps even more striking about it is its placement, that this reflected, twisted image of Jesus is tucked away on the side of the church, creating an element of duality. The image on the left is what's projected inside the church, the image on the right is what gets projected out. But what's even creepier is the fact that people have asked security guards about this image and they're told by security that this image is not supposed to happen. But like this person says, contrary to what the security guard says, it almost feels like the visibility of this thing is deliberate. The glass is in a fish bladder shape that shows it off perfectly, and like they go on to say, if this reflective image was meant to be hidden, why would the architects carve out a space for it? And despite multiple calls and emails to the owners and the architect of the church, people get no response. And still to this day, it's there. Now, I know some people will say that this shouldn't be very surprising given the fact that it's just California, bro. But, I don't know. I mean, people still find this to be very creepy, even comparing it to the evil demonic clown Pennywise from It. So when it comes to this next news segment, people are saying this has very eerie Leave the World Behind vibes, but to me this feels like iRobot. Without a doubt, this needs to stop.
Video here captured several of the self-driving cars just clogging up a neighborhood cul-de-sac. The people living in the Northwest Atlanta neighborhood say dozens end up circling their community. Channel 2 Steve Gelbach is on one street where they want the Waymos to stop.
It's almost every little cul-de-sac around our area, so I think it's a real problem.
Waymo after Waymo after Waymo enter this dead-end street, usually early in the morning.
I think yesterday morning we had 50 cars that came through between 6 and 7.
Neighbors on Battleview Drive started seeing the autonomous, driverless cars 2 months ago, but the groupings and large number of Waymos just started circling in and out in the last couple weeks. They even shared video with us when neighbors used this little guy to put him right out here in the street to block the Waymos from getting into the cul-de-sac, and you can imagine what happened next.
And we had at 1.8 Waymos that were stuck trying to figure out how to turn around.
The Waymos are empty and not picking anyone up, and parents are worried, not only calling it excessive, but dangerous.
We're families, we have small kids, we have animals and pets, we've got kids getting on the bus in the mornings, and it just doesn't feel safe to have that traffic.
Neighbors reached out to Waymo and have not got a response. They've also contacted their council member, representatives, and GDOT, and don't know what to do.
We would just like to see them stay on main traffic roads. I don't think there's any reason to be on small residential cul-de-sacs if they're not picking up somebody.
Okay, maybe I was wrong. Maybe it does indeed give off very eerie Leave the World Behind vibes when it came to that scene where all those Teslas were hacked and they were blocking traffic. Maybe it's some kind of test for that. But moving on, with everything going on in the world today with all these cruise ships and things coming off of them saying they're being spread around, don't forget this clip right here and what happened during the C-19.
What are you, COVID cleaner? COVID cleaner? Are you for real? That's something out of f***ing... Hey, bruv, do you really have to wear that? Do you really have to wear that? What are you doing? Why are you taking photos? You're not even doing... You're just doing that for paparazzi. Why are you doing this? You're not even cleaning. You're not even cleaning, you're just taking photos. What are you doing? What are you doing? You're not even cleaning. What are you doing? Is this for the media? Is this for the media? Who are you? What are you doing? You're taking photos for the media. Why are you dressed like that? Why are you dressed like that? You're taking photos for the media. What? Helping! She's not doing nothing. Get on here to make fear in people's heads. There ain't a pandemic. Take your mask off and all. Look, you're taking photos. You're not even doing it, but listen. All you're doing is taking photos. That is all you're doing, is taking photos. Like, what are you doing? Now take it off, now go around the corner and take another photo for the media.
Everything just feels staged, and it still does. But in this next clip, this individual out of El Salvador believes he captured a cloaking entity on camera. So I thought maybe this was a glitch or an artifact on the camera, but you can see the dog go over there and it's circling the area and the dog never disappears. The only thing that blocks out part of the dog is the tree, but whatever this was that was walking past looked like they were cloaked before they even approached the tree, where it would block them out. That is definitely a pretty odd clip.
By now, we're all aware that eating fast food can lead to an early grave. But having food that's contaminated from a fast food establishment could be even worse. And what am I talking about? An employee at a Southbridge, Massachusetts McDonald's working the drive-thru decided that it was funny to take a customer's French fries and stuff them in her mouth and then place them back into the box, basically contaminating the French fries and then serving them to the customer. If you haven't seen this disturbing video, take a look at it for yourself. Look at this. It's hilarious too, putting them back in the container. Just disgusting. And after this video went viral on social media, a full investigation began. The police have responded to this viral video and are doing a complete and full investigation into this contamination of food.
That video came from the Jody69, and this is just another reason to want to eat at home. The American food supply is bad enough with what's ever in it, including Soylent Green is people and things like that. But to have people now, and I'm sure this has been going on for a long time, but still have people putting your food in their mouth and doing all other types of things with it that they're not supposed to, again, it's just another reminder to cook your own food. And on top of that, this was a manager who was upset because a customer asked for more fries.
Is that you were born in 1954?
Yeah.
Okay, you're 71.
Yeah.
Right? In 1954,
By the way, I'm a vampire. I'm never gonna die.
during your lifetime.
Did y'all just hear Kevin O'Leary say on live TV that he's a vampire and he's never going to die? Here, I slowed it down for y'all so you can hear it better.
Okay, you're 71.
Yeah.
Right? In 1954,
By the way, I'm a vampire.
during
Not only does he say this on live TV, but he's also in a movie, Marty Supreme, where he's also saying he's a vampire that's been around forever. Watch.
I was born in 1601. I'm the vampire. I've been around forever. I've met many Marty Mousers over the centuries. Some of them crossed me, some weren't straight, they weren't honest. And those are the ones that are still here. You go out and win that game, you're gonna be here forever too. You'll never be happy. You will never be happy.
What are the chances he says he's a vampire on live TV? They also give him a script for a movie where he says he's a vampire that's been around forever. And then he has this hand symbol he's doing down here. On top of that, what are the chances that he's on Dragon's Den, of all things? And he's doing the hand symbol right here too. And on Shark Tank, where he's doing the hand symbol right here as well. And why is he the one that's funding this massive AI data center being built in Utah, known as the Stratos Project, backed by Kevin O'Leary, and is moving forward in Utah following unanimous approval from the Box Elder County Commission on May 4th, 2026. Planned as a 40,000-acre site near the Great Salt Lake, it is intended to be built in phases over the next decade. 40,000-acre AI data center, and it's being literally developed. The project is supported by O'Leary Digital Limited as West Gen Co. Why would a Shark Tank dude be building a massive data center? Not just a massive data center, the most massive data center significantly in the world. They tell you exactly who they are, though. He's literally told us in movies and on live TV now that he's a vampire.
Some may say that this is just figure of speech, but there's no figure of speech with these people. They always tell us who they are in plain sight. This is the same individual, like Sword of IM2 said, is building a massive data center, one of the biggest in the country, if not the world, in Utah, just going to suck everything out of that state. And these individuals that are massively wealthy, I mean to the point they're on TV, they're well known, they can do these massive data centers, are without a doubt also doing a certain chrome. So when they say they're vampires, make no mistake about it, they are. And also that hand sign he's doing, we've seen the so-called powers that be do time and time again. And of course there'll be other people that say, I also do that hand sign. But we've also seen that hand sign on a TV show called V, constantly used by these quote-unquote aliens that happen to be these reptoids that are humans in disguise.
1978, a 20-year-old pilot named Frederick Valentik was flying a small plane over the Bass Strait in Australia. But mid-flight, he radioed air traffic control saying something was following him, not another plane. He said it was hovering above him, moving impossibly fast with 4 bright lights, and that it wasn't showing up on radar. Then his voice changed. He said the object was circling him, that it was metallic, and that it seemed to be playing games with his aircraft. Air traffic control asked for clarification. Frederick responded with his final words, "It's not an aircraft." Then the radio cut to 17 seconds of metallic scraping sounds. No distress call, no crash report. His plane was never found. No wreckage, no oil slick, no body. Years later, multiple people reported seeing strange lights in the sky that same night. The official explanation? Pilot error, disorientation. But here's the problem. How do you misidentify something that's above you, circling you, and not on radar? And how does a plane disappear without leaving a single trace? Because Frederick Valentik didn't just vanish. He was last heard being followed. Stay weird. In 1978,
that video came from Beyond Weird, and I don't think people talk about Frederick Valentik as much as they should, especially in the scope of Amelia Earhart, because he was never seen or heard from again, and this is his eerie final audio.
Delta Sierra Juliet, what type of aircraft is it? Delta Sierra Juliet, and confirm you cannot identify the aircraft. Delta Sierra Juliet, roger. Stand by. Can you describe the aircraft? Delta Sierra Juliet, roger. How large would the object be? Delta Sierra Juliet. Sierra Juliet, confirm your aircraft just vanished. Delta Sierra Juliet, is the aircraft still with you? Delta Sierra Juliet, roger. What are your intentions?
So this is the last thing you would want to see standing at the edge of the Grand Canyon. A man and his wife visited the Grand Canyon, where his wife snapped a photo of him standing at the edge of the canyon, after they had the photos developed because this was in the late 90s, early 2000s. They realized that there was a person standing in the tree line behind her husband. Now, her husband is 6 foot tall, so this man had to be at least 7 foot tall. He's also wearing a solid black cloak, and he's just staring at the wife taking the photo. Neither one of them noticed this man that day either, which is kind of crazy because he's a very large man. It'd be hard to miss him. They had to walk through this wooded area too to get to where the husband's standing. So it makes you wonder if this man is actually a spirit lurking in this tree line, and they just so happened to catch him on camera. Now, there have been many accidental deaths in this area for obvious reasons. Maybe he was there to warn this husband to not stand that close to the edge of the canyon.
That video came from Whoa That's Strange. It could be an entity in that photo. I feel like you see a couple of faces in that photo, but it's possible that could have been somebody, maybe even throwing him off the ledge, and they spotted the camera person and decided against it.
There's been several reports out of Washington State of people having these encounters with these random old people in the woods. Now, there was this man named Jack. Jack was from Seattle, Washington. Him and his girlfriend Katie, they decided they were going to go for a jog out near Squanami Pass on this trail that veered off the Pacific Crest Trail. Now, they had planned on going about 5.5 miles. So they get to this parking area at the base of the trail. They get out of their car and they started to jog. Well, as they got about 2 miles into their run, they noticed this woman on the trail. She looked probably in her 70s, 80s. She was completely dressed in all white. She had pale white skin, this blank stare on her face. And as Jack and Katie run past this woman, they say hi. She didn't say anything. She just kept on walking. So they go another mile, and as they're running, they see the same woman. Once again, all dressed in white. And they're like, how in the world did she get that far up ahead of us when she was going in the opposite direction? She's 70 years old, and, we've been running this whole time. So they continue on. They get to the end of their 5.5 mile run. And right as they stop, they see this woman again, all dressed in white. And they said she just looked at them, smiled, turned, and just started walking off in the opposite direction. So they make their way back to their car. And as they get to the end of the trail, once again, there is this woman, all dressed in white. She looks at them and she says, I guess this is the end of the trail now. And they walk past her, they turn around, and they could see she disappeared. like she's no longer there. So they get back in their car, and instantly both of them started feeling very ill. When they start the car, they could see it was 6 p.m. And they're like, wait a second, we left at 8 in the morning. How could it be 6 p.m.? They look at their phone. Sure enough, it was 6 p.m. So they couldn't figure out why that run took many more hours than it normally does. And they also started to feel progressively worse, to the point where they turned off their car and they ended up falling asleep. And they slept for several hours. And when they awoke, they said they had this weird feeling like someone was watching them. So they left. In this same general area on the Pacific Crest Trail, there was this other man named Gary. Gary said him and his father, they were hiking on this trail one day, and he said they were pretty deep in to where, this was a pretty secluded area, and it was pretty thick woods. We said out of nowhere, they hear someone walking through the brush. They said out of the brush, out of the woods, onto the trail, steps this older gentleman, probably 70, 80 years old. Once again, he's wearing these white dress clothes, and he's got this pale white skin. They said he looked, very out of place. And this was a hot day, and he's dressed in these very warm, dress clothes. He said he looked at them and he said, it really is Enigma. And then they said he turned and walked back into the woods. And as they made it back to their vehicle, he said they, started their car, and they just felt like something was weird. And when they got back home, they realized it was the next day. Somehow they misplaced a whole 24 hours of time encountering these random old people that people are seeing in the woods.
That great video came from Parahan251, and the reason why I used this video and the reason why this stood out to me, I know a couple people from Washington State. This couple I know, they were walking through this wooded area. They said it was getting kind of late out, and all of a sudden, they heard this real loud scream coming from the direction ahead of them, but it was an older woman type scream, and then all of a sudden, it yelled, get out now," and all they could hear was this laughter, which felt like it was surrounding them, but all they did was book it to their car and took off. They said to this day they will never forget that story, and they still haven't been back to that wooded area.
Dam in Nevada, these winged figures of Republic sitting right outside, maybe guardian angels or fallen angels. There's a 16-point star right next to it, and it's a compass, but it has the astrological symbols all around it. Also says to the magnetic pole of the earth, reminding us that this was built in alignment. Now, this plaque sits outside. Over 100 men lost their lives. Here is a photo of some of the men that were workers there, just looking to make a dollar. Now, remember that this dammed up the largest reservoir in the United States, which is called Lake Mead. Here it is. Remember, anything that is holding back water, that water is power. Water is power. And look at the symbol of the bridge there. Just the way everything is symbol. These little symbols are all throughout the plant. They say they also hold energy, but they also say they're Native American symbols, and there's just so much that can go on and on. I could just show you a whole bunch of stuff, but this was really intriguing and very highly energetic.
That video came from Fishy Travels, and it really does scream Denver Airport with all that symbolism and those statues, and it truly makes you wonder what lurks under these specific places with all this symbolism. This also reminds me of locations like the Appalachian Mountains, the Grand Canyon. This interesting video comes from Nomad's Animal Encounter.
What is the government trying to hide with the no-light zones inside of some of the national parks on the American West? Now, the reason why I say the American West is almost all no-light zones only exist on the western side of the United States. There's only one no-light zone on the East Coast. All these no-light zones are almost always in the desert. Okay, now at first appearance, a lot of people say, well, no light zone, it's just for nature, it's just to enjoy the beauty of it. It's so there's no light pollution, and we keep it like how it was thousands of years ago. I could take that at face value, but when you look into these laws of the no light zone, it goes way further than no light. A lot of these zones are actually no light, no mechanic zone, and that means that you can't use any kind of machinery either, even if it doesn't emit light. Like you can't use things like chainsaws or anything with a motor. So even a bike with a motor on it is against the rules. It's not emitting light. How this gets even deeper of the reason why I think there is some kind of conspiracy going on here or something that they are not wanting us to know about is in these no light zones. There are some areas in these no light zones that it is so strict that if you need emergency evac, even the rescuers have to get the approvals to use lights to come and rescue you. That means like if they know that you have fallen down a canyon and you have snapped your legs at both of your kneecaps and they know they need to get you out of there, they have to still get special approval to fly a helicopter in there or to use a vehicle to get you out or to produce light at nighttime. Where the conspiracies come in is there some kind of creature that lives out there in the desert that is drawn to the light or drawn to the noise of machinery? Okay. You start talking about skin. We don't say this. My wife's Native American. She does not let me say that word out loud, especially out here, in our neck of the woods. But a SW could be very drawn to a light because out there in the desert, it could oftentimes be flat for very, very, very far, or you can see the smallest light source. I mean, I was in the Grand Canyon one time and we were in a no light zone. Somebody turned on a light anyhow. And I mean, I had to estimate they were miles away and I could see them like that. I mean, it was so easy to spot them. It was just a little red light and it was on for just a few seconds. And I mean, it was like my eyes drew right to it. So I can't imagine if there was some kind of creature or some kind of group out there that would be drawn to that, they would want you to have the lights on. Next, you go to these like weird conspiracies like, is there no machinery because that's vibrations? And then you get into the weird stuff like, the sandworms on tremors and like the really weird stuff. But here's the one that I'm intrigued about. In no light areas, like I said, I could see that light in the Grand Canyon real easy. You start getting to the UFO stuff. Could somebody theoretically go into this desert where there's no light so your light would stick out really good and you could almost communicate in some way or, draw them in by flickering these lights? Because out in the American West, that's where like almost all of the super iconic UFO incidences happened. I mean, you're talking about like Roswell and, the whole Area 51 stuff. All that stuff is out there. Is that another reason why they don't want machineries or lights is because they have secret, bases out there like Area 51 and any kind of machinery might be able to detect them or disturb some kind of study they're doing underground. There's so many, the possibilities are endless, but these no light zones, what got me and what made me really think that it wasn't part of like just experience nature is that if somebody's hurt, you have to get permission for the rescuers to come get you. Like to me, that is so wild because I'm pretty sure that nobody would be offended that like a helicopter came in to rescue somebody that like almost snapped themselves in half from falling down a cliff or something. I don't think anybody's going to be upset about that. But yet, they still have to take special protocols for that to go happen. Strange.
The thing about the Grand Canyon, too, is that it's heavily restricted. There are even no flyover zones. It's kind of like Antarctica. You have to really wonder what secrets are in there.
In the following video, a young boy falls asleep on the couch after watching TV by himself. The boy's father, known as Oscar Nunes, had no idea that his son was out in the living room during this time. But Oscar isn't surprised by this, given that his son occasionally sneaks out of his room to watch TV while everyone else is asleep. But tonight, on December 1st of 2019, his son quickly realizes that maybe it's best if he didn't stay up past his bedtime. Now before showing this clip, it's worth mentioning that recently strange things have been happening to this family. On one occasion, the family had come home late at night and saw this, an infestation of flies, most of which were surrounding the house. But the strangest part about this is that not a single fly was inside the trash bin that was right next to their home. Understandably, Oscar's family was thoroughly unsettled. Going back to this video, the family believes that it may have some connection to the fly incident. The son is dead asleep when this is captured. Upon checking the cameras, Oscar saw this, a figure standing in the hallway, but no one else was awake during this time. It's 3 in the morning and something appears in the dark. They, or it, just stands there without moving an inch, but it doesn't go unnoticed by Oscar's son, who before this was moving erratically on the couch. But creepiest of all is that the figure somehow vanishes into nothingness. The hallway is now empty compared to before. Oscar was surely creeped out by this footage, and like his family, he believes that this incident had something to do with the fly incident that occurred recently. Paranormal or not, these occurrences are pretty creepy, but until further updates are given, we'll have to speculate for now as to what exactly is going on with Oscar's home.
So I had brightened this section up of the hallway, and you can definitely see somebody standing there. You can see the legs and you can see the torso. And when it comes to the flies, that eerily reminded me of that scene from that movie, Amityville Horror.
This has to be one of the worst ways to die, for me at least. This is another worst death imaginable. Viewer discretion is advised. Pictured here was diver Parker Turner. Parker Turner was 39 years old and he was an experienced diver. Diving was his passion, which I can just never understand. So this happened in Florida in 1991. It was at Indian Spring, which is in Wakulla, Florida. It has a series of deep, dark caves that you can go swimming around in. Again, I don't get it. It was November 17th, 1991. Parker Turner, as well as 3 other divers, were going into the caves. Parker was partnered with Bill Gavin on that dive. At one point, Parker and Gavin passed by the other 2 divers because Parker and Gavin planned to go much deeper into the system. The other 2 divers at a point had begun to do their slow resurfacing to decompress. And what happened next was something that none of them could have predicted. One of the other divers who was in the process of decompressing, they weren't anywhere near the surface yet, because you have to make like periodic stops as you're going up. One of those 2 divers who was decompressing was in an air pocket below a chimney of the limestone ceiling when he let out bubbles from his scuba tank. What then happened was the limestone ceiling above them collapsed, and all of these rocks began to slowly tumble down. And it created essentially an underwater mudslide. Again, this is not an image from the incident. But when this happened, it then creates zero visibility because everything is clouded now. But what those 2 divers who were decompressing realized was that their other 2 divers, Parker and Gavin, were behind where the cave basically collapsed. They were stuck. They were trapped. And where they were trapped, it was dark, it was tight, they were basically pressed in. There really wasn't much room to move. Parker decided he was going to take a risk. He was going to try to get out of this. It was a very long way up to the surface from where they were. And again, you have to decompress or else it could be very bad. But what he did was he took off all of his gear to make himself as small as possible, and he pulled out a couple rocks and was able to narrowly slide through this very narrow opening. And they believe the plan was that he was going to try to swim all the way up to the surface. You can only hold your breath for so long. With every inch he was beginning to frantically swim to the top, it was still so far away. Eventually, he could no longer hold his breath, and the slow process of drowning began. They think he was trying to find the guideline as well, but there was no visibility. And so he would probably spend the next couple of minutes drowning, panicking, and eventually he would die. The other diver would eventually be able to move some more rocks and get himself out with the gear still on him, at least enough to get him to the surface. And Gavin was able to get out of there and he was able to survive. They would recover Parker's body a short time later. And again, this was no fault of his own. I can't say I understand all the science behind this, but what they figured out was the bubbles released from the other diver's tank, it reduced the buoyancy of the water, which increased the weight of the limestone rocks, causing them to drop and then block the entrance to the cave. Air bubbles caused the collapse. I don't think any of them could have expected that to have happened. And all I can hope is that he did not suffer very long.
What is so scary about this story, and this video comes from Making a True Crimer, is that you can be very experienced doing this for years, have all this knowledge, and it can take the slightest thing to go wrong underwater, or even in the skies when you're flying a plane. The slightest thing can go wrong, and that's it. Doesn't matter with all those years of experience. When it came to this individual, air bubbles were probably the least of his concerns of things to go wrong.
So I just stopped to eat some lunch. And, well, you may think that I'm in a crowded parking lot right now. You think that people are getting in and out of my vehicle right now. No, I'm on top of a hill. In my prior videos, everybody wants to say that I'm surrounded by trees, and that is what is setting off all my sensors to show all the people, right? No. Like, look, there's this one little tree right here, right there. But everywhere else is dead trees. Is my truck actually picking up forest? Oh my God. They're in the bed of my truck. How are there so many? How are there so many? You guys, there is no trees. I mean, there's that tree about to fall over due to this wind right now. But, like, that's far away. That's not next to my vehicle, as this is saying that this is next to my vehicle. Everybody's like, oh, it's trees. It's just picking up the trees. No, this is forest spirits. Like, let's look at my cameras. Let's look at my cameras real quick. Nothing in the front, nothing in the back, nothing on my sides around me. The bed of my truck, you can't see the bed of my truck. But look, nothing in front. Everybody's in front. Everybody is in front and in my bed and pretty much sitting right here with me. Sorry, I just had lunch. My truck is haunted. I should probably get out of here. But these are my people now. You guys are all my friends. Don't leave me. Stop it. Come back. What the? All right.
There could be multiple theories behind this as to why he's seeing all these people when they're not there. Another thing could be is that it's glitching, but it's also very possible, and I do wonder if these vehicles, these electronics, can pick up alternate dimensions crossing over. Maybe where he is in another dimension is an area filled with people walking back and forth. You never know. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this channel and you want to see more, please subscribe. If you're already subscribed, please like, as any engagement does help the channel grow. Once again, thank you so much for your support.